From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Danda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. Hey folks, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Superpowers School podcast. And if you missed the previous episode with our amazing guest, John Lee, I would recommend that you listen back to that episode to find out all about John's background and how he set up his business as well, which is the custom mobile app business. And he talked a lot about his journey in entrepreneurship. But in this episode, we're really going to deep dive into John's superpower that is brought to this particular episode, which is all around reflection and the power of reflection, especially when you're innovating. So, John, welcome back.
Thanks, Paddy. Happy to be here.
Hey, so John, you talked to me in the first episode about this superpower. So tell me more about reflection. Why is it so important?
It's something that I just find myself doing naturally. Every once in a while, I get a thought in my head and it just won't leave me. It's almost a physical desire or a physical urge where I have to sit down, find the time to sit down and take out my notebook and sketch out the thought and get to a settled perspective on it, like an opinion, a personal opinion on it. And then it leaves me. So I don't control when they come, but when they do, I find myself spending a good chunk of time just sitting on the couch and working in my mind through the problem, getting down to the different layers of it, and then coming to a perspective where I think, okay, I can defend this perspective, and it's the one that I think is right.
Got it. And when we're reflecting, is that reflecting to then be able to move forward? Is it to reflect to put right some mistakes we may have made?
Hmm.
When would you say it's important for us to do that?
Well, personally, I really enjoy just the process. A lot of these questions are not related to anything, to my career or to my future, or they're just questions, like very interesting, big questions, philosophical questions. So I do love thinking through big philosophical questions, but there's definitely value in reflecting on, my past, my present, my future. I just went through a program called the self-authoring program. And I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist. He's a famous thinker and speaker now over the past couple of years. But he's got this program where you write out your past, your present, and your future, guided by different questions. And so I went through that a month or two ago, and I found the process of thinking through my past and breaking that past into narrative segments and working through those segments. I discover themes in my past that I didn't know or didn't realize before. And that's really helped to shape my future goals as well. So the whole program takes you through the past, the present, and then goes to the future. Taking the time to think through where you are and where you want to be just has to be good. Right? And I'm at the point in my life, I'm middle-aged now, where I think naturally I'm thinking about the future and how I want to spend the second half of my life, how I want that to go, and what I can do to shape that and just have more agency in the direction of where my life is going to go for the second half.
Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, one of my favorite all-time talks is Steve Jobs when he does his speech at Stanford, I think it is, or one of the big universities. And it's all about connecting the dots. So it's about looking back and connecting those dots to help you move forward and look into the future. And I think, sometimes when we're thinking about what's our purpose, I'm kind of at that middle age as well. So I absolutely can empathize with what you're saying. There comes a point in your life when you do feel like I need to pause. I need to really understand, where am I going? What was the reason I was here? And I think I've been doing a lot of reflecting recently on that as well. And I think one of the conclusions I drew from it was, my purpose wasn't anything to do with my professional career. So, my background is agile ways of working. Am I the best person to teach someone agile? Probably not. Is that my purpose? Probably not. But I think the thing that I boiled it down to when I look at all of those past experiences was the fact that I've been able to connect either with people or connect people with either knowledge or other people themselves. So I think I'm a connector in terms of where I landed with my purpose. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not have reflected back. So I absolutely understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Having
Just
that self-awareness.
yeah, hearing you speak, what also comes to mind is the fact that we are storytelling creatures. It's like part of our brain. We do it so naturally. We fit our lives into a story. And if we take the time to think about the past, we will naturally connect the dots, like you said, and put ourselves in a storyline. And I think another thing I've realized about kind of entering middle age is there's less and less buffer room, maybe, as we enter middle age. The Like our bodies, for example, there was a lot more leeway earlier in life, but as I enter middle age, there's less and less give, and the body is not as forgiving as it was, and so it takes a lot more just strategy and working with my body and understanding my body to make it work for me going forward. So there's more of that. There's just less flexibility, less give, less grace, I think, in all areas of life, mentally, emotionally, in terms of, like you said, purpose. We can get through the first half of our lives. I think we can just pretty much float. Our bodies are very forgiving. We are just naturally interested and enthusiastic about many different things. And you can distract yourself through the first half of life. But I think at this point, a lot of people go through a crisis, like a midlife crisis, because things are getting a lot sharper now from my experience. And things start to break down. If we don't address them now, they will quickly, I think, start to break down mentally, emotionally, relationally. And so it's a really important time. And I think reflection at this point is natural because a lot of us feel intuitively that we've got to get our foundations, we got to fix our foundations now, or things are going to start crumbling very quickly going forward. So that's a sense I've gotten over the past couple of years. I'm heading toward 40. So it's probably just a physical, natural realization, I think, that happens to a lot of us.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand where you're coming from on that. I totally agree. I play soccer, as you guys would call it. Well, I tried to play soccer, but I hadn't played for a long time. It'd literally been over a year. And I think I played, yeah, just earlier this week. Oh my God, I think I pulled something. So I'm
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of limping around.
I'm not surprised.
And we were playing fairly younger people. They were a lot younger than the people on our team. And in my mind, I knew what I wanted to do, but the body just wasn't moving in line with my thoughts. So yeah, they were just running circles around us. And I think that moment really hit home that, hey, you're not as young as you think you are. And there are limitations now. And so I've got to be careful, injuries and all the rest of it. But I think mentally as well, right? Like I remember the days when I could stay up pretty much most of the night and maybe, work on something. Now it gets to about 10 o'clock and I'm feeling exhausted and I just need some sleep and the body needs that relaxation. Otherwise
Yeah,
you will do yourself damage.
absolutely. Yeah. It's making me a more efficient and strategic worker. I think also being a parent just kind of throws you in the deep end of that, where we're getting a lot better at time management, I think. We know when we're at our best. So we try to get our work, our creative work in that time frame. And I, I'm much more efficient with my time now because I have to be, right? Whereas when you're younger, you've got a lot of time, you have a lot of leeway. So just it's part of the process, I think.
And talking about sort of the downtime, I mean, you're an entrepreneur who's, started that journey and I guess you have to be constantly creative in terms of innovating and coming up with new ideas. How do you create those new ideas? Again, is it a part of that which is reflection? Do you use time out to reflect on things? How do you create the best ideas? What do you do?
To be just completely honest with you, I'm at a point in the business right now where I'm not creating a new product. I'm trying to push an existing service slash product onto customers. So I don't have to be that creative at this point of the business. I just have to try to grow it and nurture the growth of the business. I do love having in terms of creativity and nurturing that, I love having conversations around new technology, new opportunities. So every week I've been meeting with two other friends and they're always smarter than me, which is great. Like they're PhDs in robotics. And I just happened to get in touch with them because our kids play with each other. So we've been meeting once a week on a Saturday, virtually for now, because one of the guys is in California. Um, and we have a 45-minute conversation about our interests. And we're slowly moving our way toward maybe some common ground, maybe a common interest or an area that we may be able to work together on. But yeah, I just love talking to different people with different backgrounds and different specialties so I can learn from them. And every time I talk to someone who knows something very different from me and much more than I ever could, yeah, it's a great way to get new ideas and to just discover new things I didn't know before. I think that's the best way to stay creative. Yeah. Keep challenging the mind to be growing and learning all the time.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. So it's about sort of, surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you or, have a different mindset so that you can hopefully inspire one another. That's fantastic.
Another thing that I'm learning in my older age is just the importance of friendships. And that's something I've prioritized growing up, but friendships are so important to me now. And I think they're going to be, well more important going forward. Meeting, meeting people, yes, learning from them, but I think developing a friendship with them is just, it's the best way to continue learning and continue benefiting from one another. And it's in those like real relationships that I think the opportunities are going to come going forward. The new ideas will come, the chance to work together. Yeah, so that's something that I would encourage folks to think about, investing in relationships, and not just acquaintances or shallow interactions, but yeah, taking the time to meet consistently and getting to know each other personally.
Oh, nice. I love that. And we'll wrap up on one last sort of question, which I always like to ask people about. If they were talking to a younger version of themselves, maybe back in their 20s or so, what one bit of advice would you give yourself in terms of making sure you do things differently? So that when you get to 40, you're not reflecting and thinking, oh my God, why didn't I do this?
Yeah, I think if I were to talk to my 20-year-old self, I would definitely say build friendships, put yourself in as many unknown experiences and territories as you can, whether that's geographically, so travel, meet different kinds of people, do different things that you never thought you'd be interested in, just to see and taste like what is that about? Because there are so many things I've discovered later in life that I wish I had discovered earlier, because then I would have had more time to enjoy them. Things like rock climbing, things like jujitsu, which I just started a couple of months ago and I absolutely love. I wish I had learned these things earlier in life and I would have just been happier and more excited and would have invested, maybe spend that time better earlier. So yeah, I'd encourage the 20-year-old to get as many new experiences and uncomfortable experiences as you can, because that's where you're going to discover yourself. Some things you just can't know until you've butted up against or encountered it in the real world. And so you have to step out and meet different people and hear different ideas and and maybe even go to different places in order to discover some of these interests that are waiting for you.
I definitely get you on the traveling part. I wish I had done more traveling when I was a lot younger, but unfortunately I didn't. I try to make up for it later on in life, but when you have kids, it's a lot more difficult, isn't it, to do that? Well, John, we're at the end of this episode, so I want to just thank you for your time. It's been a real pleasure. If anyone is looking to start a podcast, or you have already started, please do check out John's app, which is, what's the full URL to it, John, just so everybody knows?
It's custommobile.app. And if you come through Paddy and his show, we'll give you your first month free. So there's no risk in getting started. So looking forward to
Oh,
seeing your listeners there.
oh, fantastic. Thank you, John. And we'll leave the details of the website in the show notes. So you'll be able to have access to that. I have to say, this episode and the one before, just spending that time with you, what I took away from that was there's a real warmth about you, John. You're a very humble person. There's not an ounce of arrogance about you. So I think you're going to do amazing things with the app. And regardless of the app, I think you're going to have a fantastic journey ahead of you. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you so much, Patty. It was a pleasure being here with you.
Oh, thanks.